We'll chant one Om to begin. Om. Rubbing the hands together, warming up the palms. Placing the hands over the eyes. And opening the eyes behind the palms and releasing. Okay, so we get to talk about Yoga Sutras in here, Danny. I pass you that. Oh. So I brought a couple of the sutra books that I have, if anybody wants to look at them. I don't have all my sutra books here because a lot of them are in the south of France, but I got these three, which are all really good. So if you want to have a look later, you can have a look at them. And today I wanted to, so usually if you haven't been to the Sutra talk before, usually what I like to do is kind of think about what topic do we want to discuss so that it makes it something that we can bring into our daily life. And today I thought about the importance of concentration. And because it's really hard to find our concentration, and especially when we're busy or there's any turmoil happening in our lives, any of those kinds of, a lot of change. So we're experiencing change of weather and maybe people have change of jobs. Anything like this, it makes it more difficult to concentrate, right? Do you agree? Yeah. Okay, so, and to attenuate the kleshas. So who's never heard of this word kleshas? Oh, okay, online. You guys all heard online. Yeah, okay. So luckily I put the little reminder there, what the kleshas are. So the kleshas are these afflictions that all of us have. We have these deep afflictions that are, and I'm going to do this very quick because they are what makes suffering in our lives. Okay, and you see the sutra there, 2-3. So the 5 kleshas are avidya. Avidya means ignorance. Ignorance is the ignorance of not seeing who we really are. What is the reality? We think that we are only this human body, but actually we have another area, aspect of ourselves that is more subtle. Okay, so we don't see reality as it is. We think that this building's going to last forever. We think this body's going to last forever. When we feel angry, we think the anger is going to stay forever, those kinds of things. And then asmita, this is I-am-ness. This is the ego. So because we are ignorant, we think we are this ego. And the ego is encompassing everything, the body, the thoughts, the emotions, the higher mind, the lower mind. So that personality, you could say. So I think I am, I identify myself with being called Linda, being female, being a yoga teacher, being a mother, being a wife, being my age, all those different things. And because of the ignorance, I identify myself as all that, which will lead to likes and dislikes. So the raga-dvesha. And those raga-dveshas, so I like, giving a yoga class. I like, maybe wearing certain clothes, or I like practicing yoga. It's, we can expand on that word, right? Like can be love or appreciate, in taste, in seeing, in feeling, it encompasses it all, right? I like my kids, for example. That's why I use like, because it's really more than like, but raga encompasses all those kind of positive things that we want. Right? Dvesha is what we don't want. We're averting. So things I don't want to get sick. I don't want to have financial problems. I don't want to have arguments with people, all those kinds of things that we don't want. Okay. And then we have abhiniveshā, which is this clinging to life. Okay, so they all work together. So the avidya, the ignorance, is the root cause of all the others. Because I don't know who I really am, I attach myself to that ego and whatever is around that ego, and I attach myself to the things that I like and the things that I want, the things that I want to possess, and I try to get rid of things that I don't want. Right. And at the end, then I also have this, I don't want to die. Right. I fear death. I cling to this life and I don't want to let it go. And so on a practical level, if we think about that in our daily life, as we have two different ways of dealing with death. Either we just think it's not happening, right? we walk around thinking that we're going to live forever. We don't recognize the fact that we all are going to pass away at some point. But at times, it starts to flare, right? Somebody gets sick in your family, you get in an accident, whatever. You might just be imagining death, or you see something on the news, and all this might bring that into play that, oh my God, I'm going to die. And as we get older, people get more and more fearful of death. But according to the Yoga Sutras, we should be trying to deal with that from today. And so we do that by letting go of our likes, letting go of our dislikes, and letting go of thinking I am this, right? I am female. I am a mother. I am somebody who teaches yoga. I am somebody who has two legs, right? If I lose a leg, does that mean that I am no longer I am, right? And when we get identified with things, then this is usually causing suffering, right? Okay, so that's a real fast, quick sum up of the kleshas. Okay, so what I wrote there is, according to Patanjali, our core suffering is due to our misunderstanding of reality, not realizing that we are more than this body, mind, character, and its attachments, aversions, and fear of dying. Okay. Then these kleshas, so the next sutra is 2.4. So spiritual ignorance is the field of the others. So, i.e., the other causes of afflictions, which may be dormant, thinned out, intercepted, or active. Okay, so the others is the five, all five of the kleshas. So the ego, the likes, the dislikes, the fear of dying. Okay, so they may be dormant, thinned out, or intercepted. So I divided it into seed forms and active forms. So these four types of states of the kleshas. So the seed forms means that they're deep inside and they haven't been sprouted yet. So prasupta, or dormant. When a klesha is dormant, it remains in the mind in a potential state, right? So it's somewhere there, but we just haven't had the opportunity to make it sprout out. It's not currently active due to lack of proper conditions. So, for example, a baby, right? Maybe a baby might not be feeling like fear of death, right? or hasn't connected itself to the ego yet in some subtle levels. Or what Patanjali talks about more is the advanced practitioner. So the advanced yoga practitioner, we've done a lot of work and we've placed those kleshas, into a dormant state. They're not affecting us as much. They're not flaring as much, right? When I don't get that meal that I want, it's not sending me out of control, right? Because I recognize that I am at peace whether I have that meal or I don't have that meal, for example. So those kinds of things. Tanu is attenuated or thinned out. When overpowered by the contemplation of their opposites or through yoga practices. This is an advanced practitioner where the kleshas are weak from disuse, but are still in the mind. So it's not as, they're not as deeply gotten rid of as the other state, right? So, but it's still an advanced practitioner. So I don't know who that would be, right? It's not me. We're not talking about advanced practitioners in the sense of I can do some advanced yoga and I can sit in meditation for an hour, or I can hold my breath for long times, right? It's much more subtle than that, this advanced practitioner. Most of us are in the active forms, the next two. So vichina, this, or intercepted or alternating. So this is when a klesha temporarily blocks out another. So it could be like raga-dvesha, for example. An easy example is when you're in an argument with somebody that you really love, really care about, whether it's a family member or a partner, and you'll be very angry. And so the dvesha is related with anger, and raga is related with love. So you'll be in that angry state, and we don't feel that love at that time. And then it can be reversed when things calm down, and we'll be feeling love and kindness and all those positive aspects. And then the dvesha has slipped away.
Is it like a scale that needs to be balanced, or the needle will go from raga to dvesha, or?
Then at the beginning, it's a lot of the needle moving, right? But our job is really to thin them out so that we're not being aroused by them.
So the job is to actually get back to the seed form?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, the seed form is also from suffering, so the best thing would be to...
The last page is the ladder of samadhi. And yeah, eventually is to burn those seeds away, right? So that is definitely what we're looking for. But in the ladder of samadhi, according to Patanjali, kaivalya is disembodied enlightenment, right? So this is the letting go of the body, letting go of that life that we experience today. And this is where I'm kind of heading on that subject for today. We can always look in from different perspectives, but I think it is quite interesting to look at it from the perspective of disembodied enlightenment, because we are here today and we know that there's going to be change, and one day this body isn't going to be here. And so our yoga practice has to be this slow letting go, right? Letting go of the things that, because when you avert something, you're also in a way attached to it, right? If you really hate something, then it's disturbing you, right? We don't want to feel strong emotions like that, that we recognize that we feel those strong emotions, but at the same time, in our yoga practices, we're trying to thin those out, Okay, we don't want to bury them. That's what I mean. It's not like if I bury my strong emotions, that's not going to count as attenuating them or thinning them out. That just is, they're just ready to pop up and explode at any moment. Okay, so they can be intercepted. Or udara, this is aroused. So the way Patanjali explains it, this is the average person, where every minute the mind is affected by these afflictions, right? Causes of suffering. Every minute my mind is after what it wants, right? Or going away from what it doesn't want. And even on a cellular level, in fact, biologically, this is what our cells are doing as well, right? They're letting in good nutrition and they're trying to send out things that is not good for it. So in the organism, it affects all 5 layers of the body, the klesha, the koshas, the panca koshas. We are made up of 5 layers. So it's affecting the physical body, the pranic body, the mind, emotional body, the bliss body, all those different layers of the body. Okay, so let's go to the next page. Okay, so Sutra 210. In subtle form, and the sutras that I skipped there are just explaining all the kleshas one by one. So if you want to go at home and revisit that or visit it for the first time, you can look at those sutras in between. So in subtle form, these 5 causes of affliction are to be overcome by the counterflow. So the counterflow, this is interesting. So, and often the way Patanjali puts the sutras in order, it's like he's dealing with the most advanced first, right? And so this is really advanced. The counterflow is relating back to the kavalya, the complete freedom, which is when we are letting go of the body. Right? So this is the higher level first. So Patanjali often addresses the more difficult first. In this sutra, he is explaining that once the kleshas have been placed into their seed forms, okay, so it's not us, this is like, it's more theoretical and trying to understand this from a theoretical place. In order to be completely rid of them, so they will no longer be able to sprout, the yogi must reabsorb those seeds into the primary cause. So the primary cause, it's the gunas. Have you heard about the gunas? Okay, so some of this might go over your heads, but the more you come and the more you read the Yoga Sutras, the more it will make sense. Okay, so if I'm overwhelming you, please don't not come back, because it is interesting. At the beginning, when you first start reading the sutras, it can be quite overwhelming because there's all these, it's like the first time you tried Ashtanga yoga. It's like, what? Bandhas, drishti, breathing, movements, and it feels overwhelming, but you just get little bits at a time. So the gunas, these are the 3 aspects of the material world, the seeing world, everything that the manifest world. So basically what he's saying is that we want to reabsorb that into the source of the manifest world. Okay? Okay, don't get too caught up in that. Let's get to the practical stuff. One can contemplate this by trait. So the counterflow is the one step before final disembodied enlightenment. So this is when the yogi would have to let go of the body. Okay, we're not maybe looking for that, right? What we're looking for, I'm assuming, is that we want to be able to feel more at peace in this world and in this life, and have some tools to be able to deal with the ups and downs and all the problems that come with being in this life, right? And once we have a certain amount of stability in this world, like they say, this is our schooling, right? So once we've found a certain amount of peace there, then we can start to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And enlightenment, I probably won't get time to go over that whole ladder of enlightenment, but enlightenment is happening little by little. Just the fact that you come to spend a Sunday evening, a sunny-ish Sunday evening, to do something like that means that you're already starting to open up into wanting to do something to go in that direction. And we get mini enlightenments all through our life, right? We get like insights into who am I, how I'm behaving, why am I thinking like this? And then it gets more and more subtle. Okay, that's summing up the ladder of samadhi. However, we could also think about it as contemplating, because a lot of our yoga practice eventually will come to contemplation, right? We're using our physical body to bring our concentration inwards, right? That's why I want to use it about concentration, because if we just go directly to all this kind of higher, subtle level stuff, when our mind is too disturbed by the spinning of the vrittis, the spinning of the thoughts, then it's really impossible. But when we use our body in yoga asana to get, okay, pulling myself inwards, right? I feel where my skin is. I feel where I am in space. I notice what's happening in my calf. I notice what's happening in the skin of my neck. I notice what's happening with my breathing. This is a slow involution. It's slowly coming to that counterflow. It doesn't feel like it because it feels like it, wow, but that's like so far away, right? But it is that progressive step towards it. Okay. So we could look at it also as tracing back from the fear of death, right? Abhiniveshā. I have fear of death. Why do I have fear of death? I have fear of death because I've worked so hard in this life to have my children, to find a partner, to build a yoga school, to build friendships, to, I don't know, whatever, to cultivate my skills, right? And so because I've spent so much effort and time through my entire life gathering these things, whether they're other people in my life, whether it's actual objects, you know, building a house, or whether it's your skill set, right? I've gotten decent at yoga. I know how, I understand a little bit of this stuff. And so that's very hard to let go of, right? And we're so attached to that. And these are my likes and my dislikes, right? Because I'm also very attached to my dislikes. I have people I don't like, people I've had trouble with, and experiences that I wish I could change. And, you know, you might feel some, you know, animosity or some bitterness. All those, we're very attached to those, right? Right? You see some older people, and even close to their dying days, they're still going on about what their parents did when they were 10 years old, right? This stuff we want to be able to let go of, right? So we're fearing death because we have all those likes and dislikes that we are attached to, even if we don't want to admit that we're attached to the bitterness and the holding on of those stories, you know, those old stories. And so from abhiniveshā to raga-dvesha, so we involate towards that. Raga-dvesha to asmita. I am who I am because of those experiences, because of the things I've learned, because of the things that I regret, because of the things that I've built, right? I identify myself. I identify myself as a mother because I have an attachment to my children. I identify myself as a wife. I identify myself as a sister, right? All those kinds of things that when you first start to hear about it, it can be a little disturbing to hear that, because when you come off the street from the normal world where nobody's talking about this, it's like, but of course I should be attached to my partner. I should be attached to my parents. I should be proud of my accomplishments. I should be angry at that person who stabbed me in the back, right? But you know, when we have those attachments, it causes us suffering, right? Okay, and then asmita to avidya, because I see myself as that character, that personality. And so I'm firmly into that character or that body, right? And I don't recognize, because of my ignorance, I don't recognize that actually I'm way more than that. There is something that pervades this universe, this world, that some people call it God, some people call it the ultimate reality, some people call it the oneness, an energy. You know, you don't have to have a specific religion to have this knowledge that there is something beyond this body and everything that we are feeling, right? And when we can get more connected to that place is forever peaceful. It's always at peace. It's not disturbed by all the wars we create about our beliefs, right? This is my belief and everybody else should believe the same thing, right? That place of peace, that place of truthfulness never has that problem. We have that problem because we've been manifested and we have our likes and dislikes and all that. Okay, so freedom from the kleshas in their subtlest forms is the attainment of enlightenment. Now, enlightenment can come in many different forms, right? We all have, if we're on a spiritual path or we're on a yoga path, then we all are experiencing little bits of enlightenment. Okay, we get insights. So this is explaining the involution, the reabsorption. This is from this book, The Science of Yoga, which is very good. They're all really good, but I like them for all different reasons. So pratiprasava means involution or reabsorption of the effect into the cause. That makes sense? The effect into the cause. So what caused me to become an asmita, right? An I-am-ness, a body, mind, breath. What caused that? Something else. We don't know. Like, we can't put our hands on it. I can't see it. I can't, right?
If we were to take the example of you being a mother, I mean, what can you ask yourself, what caused me to be a mother?
Yeah.
Is this like a valid
Yeah, that's a really valid question, because it comes back to this phrase, I am not the doer, right? We are not the doers. We think we are the doers, but how did that all happen, right? And it brings that mystery and going back to find out this. Yeah. How did I become a mother? Or one of the things that you could try is, well, I can imagine myself at 5 years old. Who was there at 5 years old? Who was there at 15 years old? Who was there at 18 years old? Who was there at 35 years old? Right? Who was there? There was something that was there always, all through that.
So the purest of forms is actually when you're at your youngest age, because you were not yet identified. You're not identifying yourself with either your studies or with the who you're actually spending your time with, how you're spending your days, your journey, your education, your work, your current work. So, but
you look at children, they're more innocent, right? And they do have a certain purity. And it's kind of going a little bit different, but it's okay, it's good. I like to answer questions. Because basically what happens is when we come from that oneness of spirit, right? What that is, I don't know what that is, but there is somehow something underlying, all this. And we come into a woman's womb and we get birth, and you can see that baby is the most innocent. But at the same time, on the cellular level, it is knowing how to scream and cry when it wants something. Right? And so it has a little bit of that attachment already, right, from birth, but it's not as grossly manifested. And then what we do is we socialize our children, right? We want to say, oh, this child is called Linda, right? And so then we're socializing our child to be identified with that name, Linda, right? And so we're kind of bringing our children up into something that's completely far away from all that, which is needed. Because they say that this is the school of learning. So first we have to learn all this and integrate, right? We are social beings. We're here to be alive. We're here to interact with each other, to feel our senses, to feel, to see things. So it is all, it's going into a bigger, wider discussion, because at the end of the day, all of this is one. All of this is the manifest of the ultimate reality, or God. So it's not actually separated, right? But we need to go through that process of separation. So first we go into that process of, I'm a good citizen of that community, right? I pay my taxes, I have a job, I participate in that society, and I learn to be part of that society. And then we have to kind of unlearn that, right? And it kind of makes sense even on the physical level of, birth, childhood, the stage of life where you are a householder, you're, making money, spending money, right? Being part of the society. And then slowly, as you get older, you're letting go of your job, letting go of your children, letting go of your job, letting go of your identity, your body, and you go back into being one with that, with the earth, right? So it's all. Am I confusing you? Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah.
It makes sense that we learn and then unlearn something.
Yeah.
And even in psychology, that's how it is, because you become conscious about something, and then if it's okay with you, you try to unlearn it. From a society perspective, you got to get used to the idea that it's normal, and where in fact it's causing you suffering. You find the cause, so you have to unlearn it eventually.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean you don't have to live by it. It doesn't mean that you have to stop being a mother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, do it.
Okay, good. So if a number of things are derived in a series from a primary thing by a process of evolution, they can all be reduced to the original thing by a counter process of involution, which is basically summing up everything we've just said. Any questions online? You guys okay? Okay, so next sutra, 434. So this is going into, so the sutras, they're divided into 4 chapters. And the first chapter is Samadhipada, which I like to say is like the sales pitch. If you read this, you're going to learn all those amazing things that if you practice yoga, you're going to experience all that, right? The next chapter is called Sadhanapada, which is what you are to practice, your sadhanas. And he's giving some ideas of if you practice this and this and this and this, then you're going to get what we just told you about in the samadhi pada. And then the third one is vibhuti pada, which is the higher powers, right? So we get the power, and concentration is in the higher powers. And then the last one is kaivalya, which is that freedom, because I am not bound by my thoughts. I'm not bound by this world, right? And there is an ability, like the Buddha talks about that, right? Real freedom is in the mind, actually, right? So this sutra comes from the last pada, and it's the very last sutra. And so he's explaining what this counterflow is in that sutra. So the counterflow of the primary qualities, so the qualities of this manifest world, which have become empty of purpose for spirit. So the spirit, our soul, no longer needs this, right? Because it doesn't need to be here in this manifest world anymore, is what is called aloneness, or the power of awareness established in its essence. Finished. So aloneness, so all the sutras and all those words, every sutra commentary you read, they're translating them in so many different ways. See, the aloneness sounds kind of sad, right? Oh, I'm so alone, right? But it's not meant to be like that. It's just that I prefer the power of awareness and the entering into the actual oneness of the universe, right? That subtle area. So this is the very last sutra and demonstrates the significance of the ability to reabsorb the kleshas. Okay, so it means, why I wrote that is, I mean, it's very significant in that whole world of yoga, right? That this is what maybe we achieve it, maybe we don't, right? But this is where we're going towards, maybe. And if you believe in reoccurring lives, then it might happen in another life. Okay, Sutra 211. So this becomes more grounded, I think. So the mental activities produced by these five-fold causes of affliction are to be overcome by meditation. Okay, so he uses the word dhyana for meditation there. There's also dharana, which means concentration. But sometimes dhyana is like a special concentration. It can be called that as well, right? So there's dharana, which is concentrating, dhyana, which is a deeper level of concentration or meditation. Okay. And you'll see that it's very tricky the way all the words are used, and it can make us feel confused about what is the exact meaning. And we're not going to really ever be able to come to really pinpoint exact meanings. They're all a little bit like gray area, right? It's not black, it's not white, it's in between. So here Patanjali shares a method to bring the kleshas from an active state to a subtle state. So the method is meditation. So when we looked at the subtle states and the active states of the kleshas, we can use meditation to work in the direction of thinning out the kleshas. At the outset, the vrittis, these are our mental activities, the thoughts, the whirling thoughts of our mind that are caused by the kleshas must be brought under a certain amount of control. Okay, delving directly into meditation is unattainable. I should have wrote usually unattainable. Usually I like not to have such strong words like that. First, we must learn to concentrate. Okay, so like I said, we can use our asana practice as a way to learn to concentrate. So in actual fact, all the aspects of Patanjali's Ashtanga yoga must be practiced to overcome or even begin to soften the effects of the kleshas. So Ashtanga yoga. So I've used the word Ashtanga yoga there because that's what's used in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. But the Ashtanga yoga doesn't mean the physical practice that we're doing as Ashtanga yoga. It's the yamas, the niyamas, the asana pranayama, and all those 8 limbs. Okay, so why we have this word Ashtanga yoga with Ashtanga as taught by Pattabhi Jois. Nobody really knows why he used that word, okay? But it can be a little bit contested in other places of teachers of yoga or styles of yoga. Okay, so it's difficult to concentrate when there hasn't been a certain ability to rein in the senses. Okay, this is one of the limbs of Ashtanga yoga, pratyahara. So if my senses just dictate me, right? I smell something and I imagine, wow, that tastes really good. And then I just want to eat it. I see something and I want to possess it. Right? Or I see something that, oh, that's disgusting, and I want to run away from it. Right? So we are drawn, if our senses are taking over too much, then it's really hard to concentrate and to go inside. Right? I hear noise that's irritating, or I hear noise and I want to go and see what's going on over there, all those kinds of things. Asana and pranayama are useful tools to learn to bring ourselves inwards. So we use those asanas to bring our senses inwards. The senses, the pratyahara, what most of the commentators say is that it isn't actually practiced. What happens is we practice things that naturally bring the senses in. Right? So I use my asanas, I use my movements, and I concentrate on my body, and then some of the senses get drowned out, right? When you're really concentrated, even if somebody's baking an amazing chocolate cake nearby, you're not drawn to that chocolate cake because you're so inside. Even if there's noises around you, it's okay. I'm listening inside. I'm feeling my senses inside in my yoga asana. So I'm learning to calm down the senses, right? And I'm learning to concentrate my mind into something concrete. Right? Because asana is interesting for that, because I can feel where my hands touch the floor. I can feel where my feet are. I can feel where my pelvis is, these kinds of things. And pranayama, same thing. It's a useful tool to bring myself inwards. If I feel my breath and how it moves my body, I feel how the air, does it feel cool? Does it feel warm? What moves when I inhale and when I exhale? And learning to consider the yamas. So the yamas and the niyamas. Have you all heard about those before? You heard? Yeah. So these are restraints and observances. So restraints are like, so I wrote them in Sanskrit there. Ahimsa means non-harming. So I want to restrain myself from harming others, harming myself, right? Satya is truth. I want to practice truthfulness. I don't want to lie to myself. I don't want to lie to others. Asteya is non-stealing. So I don't want to steal things, and I also don't want to, and you could steal subtle things. I could steal somebody's happiness, right? By saying something mean to them. I haven't actually stolen their item, but if I say something mean to somebody, then in a sense, I'm stealing their right for feeling good and feeling happy. Brahmacharya is the sexual instinct. So I want to control the sexual instinct to use it appropriately, right? If I use my sexual behavior in a way that is inappropriate, I can hurt another person, right? Aparigraha is greedlessness. So I don't want to be greedy. Right? The more resources I take, the more I'm actually taking resources from other people. Okay, that's a very vast sum up of the 8 limbs of yoga. Niyamas, observances. So saucha is cleanliness or purity. So I want to have my environment be as clean and clear and unobstructed as possible, right? If there's a whole bunch of stuff, it's not easy for the mind to be clear, right? So you see always the yoga studios, they tend to be more spacious, right? But it's also purity in the sense of non-polluting yourself, right? So how you eat could be something like that. What you watch, what you listen to, what you participate in, those can be polluting. Samtosha is contentment. So I want to cultivate contentment, to feel contented with what is, what I have, who I am, right? So these are coming back to feeling contented in this world, right? To integrate our personality. Tapas, this is building burning desires, but burning desires on positive aspects. So I want to cultivate a burning desire to come and practice my yoga practice. I want to cultivate a burning desire to understand a little bit more about the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I want to cultivate a burning desire to be able to concentrate, because if you don't have the desire, you're not going to do it, right? It's just part of it. Swadhyaya is self-study or scripture study. So I want to look inside and go inside and contemplate, why am I behaving like this? Why do I think the way I do? Why am I attached to this? Why am I why do I not like people who blah, 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 right? Why do I feel aversion to this? Really contemplate these on a deep, subtle level. And also studying of scriptures is because we want to study with those who know a little bit more than us. So they say scriptures, but I also think it could just be studying, right? You don't have to study. I'm not an enlightened being, but I've studied quite a bit. So I have something that I can share. So studying with others who might have something to share with you. And Ishvara Pranidhana is the surrendering to a higher principle, that at the end of the day, you can make all this effort, but you are not the doer, and there is something that will overtake, right? I'll put all my effort into learning to do Pincha Mayurasana, a forearm stand, but all I can do is put in the effort. There's something beyond my effort that will decide if I can do that pose or not, right? Putting it on something very superficial, just to make it concrete so we can understand, right? So letting go and understanding we cannot change everything, basically. Okay, so those help us, the yamas and the niyamas, help us live a more harmonious life within ourselves and with others. Okay, so if we have too much disharmony, it's hard to be calm and it's hard to concentrate. If you've had a big fight with somebody, then to sit down and be like this peaceful meditator, really what's going on is like, oh, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, right? It's their fault, right? That's usually what's happening in most of our minds. Okay, so The 8 limbs define also dharana and dhyana. So coming back to how to thin out the kleshas is to learn to concentrate and meditate. Okay, meditation he doesn't say how to meditate. He's not saying that you must do loving kindness meditation or you must do Zen meditation, none of those techniques. It's just meditate. So meditate could be a form of meditating on our yoga asana, meditating, going deeper, a more deeper experience of concentration when we're doing our pranayamas, for example. Okay.
Our meditation, right?
Like it's not defined, right? Well, look at the definitions, and this might make more sense. So the definition of dharana or concentration is binding the mind to one place, right? So what some people will say is concentration is when I'm doing my yoga asana, I'll be deep into my concentration, and then I'll think, oh, actually, I'm kind of hungry. I wonder what I should have for dinner tonight, right? So you have to keep bringing it back, right? So it's not fixed, right? I need to keep making that effort to keep concentrating. And then meditation is the mind's single flow of ideas upon that place of concentration. So this is, nothing else is coming to mind. I'm not comparing myself to the person next to me. Oh, wow, they're more strong than me, or they're more flexible than me, or, I'm doing less asanas than them, or my mind doesn't even go to that. So I have a more single flow. I don't have to make as much effort to have my concentration.
It's, for example, because Ashtanga is like a predefined yoga series and sequence, it is some sort of meditation. I mean, at least to me, I see it as a form of meditation, because at some point you stop thinking about the next posture. It becomes automatic to actually go there without even thinking about it. And your only focus would be, how do I get there, or am I there, or what do I have to do to actually improve the posture?
Exactly.
So I do think about it as meditation.
Yeah.
Maybe in the same way, because it's physical practice, so it's still superficial in a way. But it is still meditation to me, just like breathing pranayama. It is also like physical and superficial, but still meditation.
Exactly. I agree with that kind of thing. Not every scholar, some they're very, very narrow-minded. And sometimes I'm wondering if they've really understood this actually, because the more narrow-minded you get, I think the less you're understanding, right? Like I look at it as gray areas. Even if you look at the ladder of samadhi, so we'll just take a quick look at that. So the bottom of the ladder is called samprajnata samadhi. So this means conscious samadhi. And the prajna, these are insights, subtle insights. So you could say at the beginning, to put it in a very, concrete way, is we could say that our asana practice and following that sequence gives us a sense of it. It helps us bring ourselves inward to concentrate, because I don't have to think, oh, what pose should I do next? Right? If you're practicing alone, sometimes you're like, oh, what should I don't know, what do I need, right? But eventually, you don't even need that template so much, right? But at the beginning, you need a template to know what to do next. But after you have this conscious samadhi, and see the 6 cubes, rectangles on the side, those are all forms of conscious samadhi. And the first one, the savitarka samapati. Samapati is like a synonym of samadhi. It means falling together, right? So falling into samadhi, basically. So that first one is falling in together with a coarse realm. So stula is coarse object. So you could, think about it as my coarse object is my body, right? So I'm falling into this and I'm feeling one with my body, right? Because very often our mind, our spirit, our higher mind, our lower mind, our body, it's all separated, right? My body is so separated from my head, right? We're walking around like heads rather than complete bodies. And then, of course, we're walking around, then maybe we get integrated into our body and we're walking around like bodies separate from our higher mind, our intellect, our the subtle insights that will just come. And we're walking around as if we're separate from our soul, the spirit. And we're walking around like we're separate from each other, right? And that we're separate from the ultimate reality, right? And slowly it's a falling together. And so maybe the first falling together could be that I'm integrating my mind, my senses, my body, all into one aspect, using that tool of the template of Ashtanga yoga, right? So you could, I believe you can do that. But if you go to a Sanskrit scholar, or they won't, they'll actually feel like you're bypassing or lowering the status of the sutras. But I personally find that if you understand that all is yoga, all is love, all is God, all is reality, then there's no possibility to undermine anything. You see what I mean? It's a bit of that involution again, right? So I agree. Okay, we're gonna, I guess, what should I talk about? I think we're going to leave that because I think that's a lot already. And then you can read this yourself. This is some stuff that I wrote and that I took from Taimini. And I think that's a lot of information already to bring, right? Especially if it's the first time you guys are learning a little bit about Yoga Sutras. Online, I think you guys have learned a little bit already, so maybe it's not as overwhelming for you. But I'm welcome to answer any last questions that you might have.
A lot of it sounds like, yes, that sounds good. Like I would love to do that. But it's like if you were talking to me about astrophysics, like, yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense. But like to take it home and do it, the distance.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was explaining that ladder of samadhi, not to get too overwhelmed with the kavalya, the top of the ladder. It's like if I want to go to the top of the staircase, I don't look at the top stair, right? I look at the first stair and I take that one first step. And so taking that first step by doing some yoga asanas, it keeps getting out and in. I keep bringing her back there. Good. Taking that first step to, learn to concentrate, right? So that was my theme, is I wanted to inspire you just to learn to concentrate and to bring yourself into your body. And how we concentrate can be very personal, right? If you're going to, if you're interested in studying the Yoga Sutras a little bit more, I would suggest either this one. This is the Swami Satchitananda, or the Heart of Yoga. Personally, I started with the Heart of Yoga by Desse, and I found this the most easy to start with because it's not in order. Because I don't know, I don't want to be critical of Patanjali, but I think it could have been organized a little bit better. You know, that would make a little bit more sense for our common minds, you know. That's why you see I'm taking sutras from different places, because I think it's a little easier to understand like that. And it starts with samadhi pada, which is a pretty heavy subject, you know, right at the very beginning. The heart of yoga, he takes these subjects and kind of groups them into topics that make them easier to digest. And then you put a little bit. So the way I started is I was starting with the heart of yoga, and I read really one paragraph or two paragraphs, you know, very short little thing. And because I'd never heard any of these words, I never knew about the Sanskrit language. Like, what? There's a language called Sanskrit? Never heard any of the thing like that. And even to like Patanjali, it took me ages to even be able to say that word, right? So reading this book that has all these words that are so unfamiliar to us, you know, I think maybe for those who grew up in India, it's easier for them because they're words they heard from childhood. But for me personally, never heard any of those words. But the philosophy behind it is brilliant, right? So, and me personally, I never connected with the Christian background, right? My father grew up with Catholic religion. My mother grew up with the Seventh-day Adventist. I don't know if you know this, Seventh-day Adventist is like a cult of Christian, and is a very strict religion. And so when I grew up with those religions, and we weren't practicing, you know, we went to church like really rarely and stuff, but it always felt like a way to admonish you, right? Like, look, you know, evil, right? It was more from my grandmother, but so I grew up feeling like, you know, like God was this nasty person that's going to look at me and decide if I was allowed to go to heaven or not. And it wasn't explained in a very, like, now I'd be way more open to it, because now I realize that the interpretation of it was flawed. You see what I mean? Like, it is about peace and love and all this, but the way grandparents used it was to make sure that you didn't start smoking, that you didn't have sex, that you know, abide by these rules. And it was feeling too, I don't know, like I just wanted away from anything like that. And so then coming to a different philosophy that felt more open, and I could discover as an adult, little by little, felt more freeing for me personally, you know. And I think it depends on every individual. Every individual has a different relationship with different spiritualities, right? And I quite like that. And if you start reading a little bit, then, so what I did is I read it in the evenings, and then I would sit and try to feel it, like from the inside, and try to understand it. What does that mean exactly? I understand all those words, but the words, you know, you can repeat words and not really know what it means. And so then I would often get a dictionary and look up that word and try to find, like, you know, different way to feel it and imagine it inside my body. And that's how I did, little by little, little by little. It took me a year to read the Heart of Yoga, like that. And then I started with Buddhism after that. And then it took me another year to read that book. And that's basically what I've been doing, just little bits. And then it feels like it becomes more like organic and not having to be something. Because the Yoga Sutras can be just as closed-minded, the yoga world can be just as closed-minded as every other, group of people who think that they know something and everybody should follow in that, that kind of behavior. And so it can happen in yoga as easily as any religion or any cult or anything.
But this is what I have to say, because there are so many. I got into yoga sutras recently. Recently means like 2 weeks ago, a month ago. I got interested in those, and 10 days ago I bought a book, which is the Yoga Sutras, but it's a much thinner book than this one. It's an interpretation by Daniel or something. So it should be easy to read because he's only picked like a couple of sutras, and with his explanation and his interpretation of things, with the translation of each. So, but at the same time, I see that there are so many other books, so many different interpretations. So, do you, when you read, come up with the interpretation of your own? So, because I want to know how to read it, because as you were saying, it's not easy to read those. I mean, you can reread the same sentence 10 times and think, okay, what is this? What are they talking about? And do you come up with your own interpretation when you read those, or do you just look up?
No, I don't feel like I come up with my own. I feel like I've read probably, I don't know, 12 or 14, 15, I don't know, versions. And so often what I do, and like I said, these are the only 3 I have here, but I have a stack of Yoga Sutra books like this. And what I'll do is I'll pick that sutra and I'll look at it and I'm like, without ignorance, no such union occurs in the what does he say about it? And then I find all those different versions, and then I feel like I find the interpretation that is sitting well with me, right? And so that's why I say it's that gray area. And so you can interpret it very, very precisely, and you can interpret a little bit more freely. And what I love about that is that ability to interpret it the way I need it without getting into this idea that I know. Because if I go into the I know, then that's where it becomes more closed-minded and maybe more dangerous, right? Because then I'm going to work against my kleshas because I'm making my asmita stronger because I know, right? I know this is the way, this is the right way. And you see that in the physical aspects of yoga asana, right? This is the way Ashtanga yoga should be taught. This is the right way. This is the correct way. This is the right kind of yoga, whether it's Shivananda, Iyengar, Hatha, whatever. And because we are dualistic in nature, right? We see the world as dual. I see, Sonya's there, I'm here, we're separate, right? I see the floor is separate from me. So we always look at everything in a dualistic, from a dualistic point of view. So it's very easy to go into black and white, right? So when I find an interpretation that sits well with me, that interpretation can change over the years, right? Because then I'll read it and I'm like, oh yeah, I never noticed that before. Right? Wow, that's cool. I never thought about it that way. And this is what I think is that process of involution, right? Going subtler, going deeper, and not needing to blame somebody else, right? And I do it, of course, like we're all, like every human being, well, oh yeah, she did that to me. And really, I feel like totally offended and blah, 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 blah. But then when I sit and it's like, okay, send that piece out and try to try to see that it's more than just the yeah, we get so caught up in this life, right?
And how many sutras are in each? Because you said there are 4 chapters
So there's 196 total.
total.
Yeah.
Okay. Divided into 4 chapters
Mhm.
equally, or
No, they're not equal. Yeah, and I don't remember how much is in each.
almost?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Okay.
I think I got a very small part of it.
Yeah. But I started reading them, I guess, about probably 29 years ago, because I started reading them about 6 months after I started yoga. Yeah. And, and sometimes I don't read them for months and then I come back and, it just,
Is
Yeah.
it very difficult to play?
to,
In the
to,
beginning?
to read.
Yes, the language, the.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, the Heart of Yoga, out of all the ones that I've read, I find that the best to read as a start. And then I would say this one would be second best. Yeah, the thing is he goes in the actual order of the sutras, so you get some glimpses. So this one, you could just open it like here at any page and read a little bit. But the Heart of Yoga gives you like global ideas, and that's what's quite interesting about that.
Can I check those out?
Yep.